Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Liz.
This is Joe's Table, where we talk about role-playing, game design, hobbies, project planning, world building, and all things creativity.
And this episode's going to be a little different than some of the previous ones we've recorded because we're not talking about role-playing games directly in this one. Instead, we're talking about... Well, it's hard to really put a term on this.
I don't even know what to call it yet.
Yeah, so we're going to figure that out as we go. Right. But, like, we're going to be talking about things that we're just like, oh, they're so good. They're things that we really like. And we're like...
You really want them.
Yeah. In an irrational sort of a way, almost sometimes. But it's not like I really want a cuddly blanket or a stuffed animal.
Right. You know what you can do with that. So let's take a step back. What we're trying to describe is a thing that we're currently tentatively calling creative consumption lust, which is a really terrible term for it. But the idea is that there are some things where you see them and they're often like creative or stylish things that you are really excited about and that you desire them. You really want to have them, right?
And I think also not only do we really want to have them, but we want to be able to do something with that idea or that image or that concept, or we want to make it ourselves, have our own one.
There's like this desire for it, not just to own it, but to implement it or to live in it or to be it.
Yeah. So I think we should start off with some examples of things.
That would make things a little bit more clear and concrete, I think.
Or maybe not. I don't know. Yeah.
They're pretty diffuse examples.
Yeah. So I think one of the first things is something I can talk about. I love spaceships. And I love a very specific type of science fiction spaceship, the type that has a long internal strut and then like engines on one end and living quarters on the other. So like think the Discovery from Space Odyssey 2001 or the Venture Star from Avatar. Like, gosh, the opener of Avatar, seeing that ship coming in over the planet, like, that's so good. Right. Why do I like that type of spaceship so much? Right.
This is such a familiar thing for us that I just know. I'm like, I'll look at a spaceship and be like, oh Liz, I found you a spaceship, right? It'll just be in whatever, like on Instagram or like on the internet or on a book cover or whatever. And it'll like, there's not like that's the thing I think that is frustrating about this sensation is that there's frequently very little you can do about it. For me, I think my first one I'm going to say is actually tools and equipment. This is why it's really weird, because I think that if we have the same sensation for a lot of really widely spread out things. Like sometimes I'll find, so I'm a budding woodworker, I would say, and I have, obviously a studio for creative stuff here since I make role-playing games and I'm shooting videos and we're doing podcasts and stuff. But there's like, whenever I see kind of like a cool tool or a device that looks like it could help me, I frequently get really into that thing because I feel like, and this is probably like a huge part of just having like a low self-esteem as far as my art is concerned, but like I feel like, oh, if I only had that one thing, maybe that would make my art better, right? And it's like, I mean, that's just objectively never the case, and yet I have like this panoply of tools and stuff. I have like a growing wood shop. I've got all these gadgets and gizmos all over my desk. And I guess for me in that particular case, it's a lot easier to just get them and try to use them, but it's still, even if I don't get them, I get obsessed about them. And I'm like, oh, that cool thing, right? That super slick device that could help me. The other thing, I guess this is probably, I've got it on my notes as two different things, but I guess it can probably kind of be unified into the same deal. But the other major one that I have a lot is like the style of certain fantasy characters that people will do art of. I will frequently see a character that somebody's done art of, like on Instagram or in an art book, and I will be like, man, I really want that character. I like need to be that character or play that. And it'll be like, well, I mean, what does that even mean? Like it's like an alien bug person or something, you know, like, or it's like some kind of weird witch wizard thing or some kind of magic spell thing. And it's just usually those are like just because it's so stylish. And I'm like, I don't even know how I would implement that level of style in a tabletop role playing game. It's like nonsensical, right? I mean, I could take that image and be like, I'm playing this character, but that just sort of doesn't do it justice, you know? And I think that's another, like, it's the interplay between the desire and the frustration about it that is a weird part of this. But yeah, that happens to me when I just see people's fantasy art and characters and stuff, but it also happens just like in terms of seeing cool art itself in art books and art styles. It doesn't always have to be a character. Sometimes I'll just see somebody's like brush work and be like, oh my God, that's such good brush work. You don't even understand. Look at the way it touches the canvas. It's amazing. Look at the way the paint breaks across the canvas. Oh, so good. And so like, yeah, then people like kind of stare at me funny and are like, what are you on about right now?
Yeah, it's just an artist thing, right?
Yeah.
So for me, another thing that I'm kind of irrationally attracted to are cheese boards, which, you know, yay, they've been having a moment right now. So right. I really enjoy looking at pictures of them. But like part of it's because I really like cheese. Yay, Wisconsinite. Yep. But part of it, like, I just love the care and attention and like how artfully they're arranged.
Right.
And the funny thing is like, I think I've tried once or twice to make a cheese board, but I never really do that. Like we have cheese plates for dinner right. where we'll just have some cheese and some bread and some stuff like that for dinner and things like that. But I never go through the time to like actually artfully arrange them myself. But like,
let alone like take fancy pictures of them or whatever. Right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm just mostly like focused on eating it at that point. Right. But like, I love the concept. I love the idea. Like, I love the feel of doing that. And, you know, maybe that's one of the more attainable ones. Right. Like I can't make myself a big long, right.
you
know, spine spaceship,
yeah.
you know, something like that, but I can definitely make a cheese board. So yeah, I think that's a more attainable one that I should probably start working on.
Right. What's for dinner?
Not cheese boards.
Darn it. I guess I also have this and this is probably tangentially related to the art styles, but there are a lot of miniatures that I'll see, like a lot of sculpts that I'll see, and I'll be like, I want to do a character like that, or like I want to make a role-playing game like that. And I guess like I can extrapolate that out to like this happens with music for me a lot too, because I will hear songs that have a particular chord progression or key or whatever, and I'll be like, man, I should do a role-playing game like that. And that's like, what are you even talking about? Like, what kind of sense does that make? You're talking nonsense right now. I'm going to make a role-playing game like that song. Mm-hmm. And I think what's funny is that at least one or two of my games have been sort of mostly inspired by music, right? Mm-hmm. Oubliette for sure. Summoner's Grimoire has some of that. Yeah, and that I'll just hear a thing and like be so into that aesthetic, mm-hmm. I guess, that I need to extend it or live in it or be inside of it, or like I don't even know how to describe it, right? Like it's like a thing you want to envelop into your identity or something, right? It's like, I wish to become the cheese board, right? Like it's so weird to mm-hmm. be like, you want it on you.
Yeah, somehow integral to me.
Right.
In a way that I can share.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really difficult or strange or weird or like, yeah.
But I mean, it's like an established enough phenomenon, right? Like I was just mm-hmm. thinking about this the other day because I'm trying to get back into guitar. I've been trying to learn to play guitar for years now. And I occasionally learn enough guitar to play a few songs, and then I'll like forget and get out of the habit and then forget what I'm doing again. But like I was just thinking about somebody discussing that and saying, very much like me, like that teenage boys will get into, like, pick up a guitar and be like, oh, I'm going to play guitar, and they'll get really into it for a very short amount of time, and then they'll just forget about it and completely mm-hmm. drop it. And I'm like, that sounds a lot like the thing that we're talking about, mm-hmm. right? And I don't think that I've ever heard anybody put a name to that sensation, because it's usually treated like, well, that's just the thing that teenage boys do. They just pick up expensive hobbies and then forget about them, right? So it's like, I think that the most cultural impact that it has had so far is that it's like a negative stereotype that people will pick up things and drop them easily, right?
I get the feeling like there's probably some German term for it, because the Germans seem to have like great little like word conjunction terms for stuff. Yeah.
Long, skinny spaceship Freuden or whatever.
Yeah.
Probably. They probably know exactly what that's called. Here's one that I think that we both have. Probably you have a different experience. I think we discussed that you have a slightly different experience to this than I do. But when I finish a book, so there was a commercial ages ago or something. I forget. It was probably for a TV channel, but they were talking about being in the show hole, where like when you finish your show, there's this sensation of like being like depression almost that sets in, where you've finished it and it's over now, right? And I get that for books. Like this is probably a separate podcast entirely, but like when I don't read fantasy novels that much anymore, because I usually either don't like them because they don't fit very well in my brain, or I like them so much that I get afraid of finishing the book, because I know that I'll be in the show hole, I'll be in the book hole, and like I'll get depressed because I don't get to live in that space anymore, right? How's that for you?
So I do still read a lot of fantasy stuff, although I've been getting away from it a bit because I've been getting so frustrated with not finding what I want. But I read voraciously. I read anything I can get my hands on.
You read savagely.
Yeah.
You read like a tiger eats a like porcupine.
Yeah. Ouch.
Poor example.
Actually, no, it's probably a really good example, because sometimes you can get into the nice meaty center of the porcupine and actually have a really good experience, but a lot of times you get face full of quills and you get really disappointed by it. And unfortunately, like recently, I've been a lot more disappointed than I have actually found good things. But when I find those good things, I think that's part of the way I know that they're really good, is when I finish those books, I guess I've got the book hole experience a little bit, but I also sometimes feel like I'm waking up from a dream in a really good book, that like I've been able to sink into it so much and really enjoy it so much that when I wake up to it, like when I get done reading it, rather, I feel like I'm kind of waking up out of this, beautiful world I've been able to experience through that book. And sometimes I don't want to wake up.
Right. That's very poetic.
Yeah. And, so that also can be a lot of like good creative inspiration too, because I don't want to leave that world that I just really enjoyed, so sometimes I'll want to try to do a game or do, something else creative to try to keep my brain in that world. Right. Sometimes if the book has sequels, I'll like immediately try to get those sequels and read them if they're available and stuff like that, which can be disappointing in its own way because sequels aren't always as good. Or sometimes I'll even think about rereading the book,
right? But
I always stop myself from doing that because I know if I reread it immediately, the experience won't be the same and I'll be very disappointed by it. So I try to wait a couple of years between rereads of books, just so that I can recapture that I'm not remembering too much of the story.
Right. And you're better at that than I am. You have excellent like show and story recall, whereas I have a very poor memory, just generally speaking. So like we'll rewatch a show and I'll be like, what happens next? And you're like, we've watched this. This is the third time we've seen this. This guy, never mind. Yeah. So maybe you should bonk yourself a few times and lose some of that excellent memory of yours.
Yeah.
So I think the last thing that we were going to try to do was put a name to this face. And I have a proposal.
Okay.
We realized that it was based around the aesthetic. This is a very aesthetic thing. And Power Thesaurus has given me yearning as a term for desire. So like aesthetic yearning seems like a good candidate for a name for it.
Yeah, I like that. We had previously talked about how we felt this was kind of related to cute aggression.
Right, yeah.
but then why am I experiencing cute aggression for a spaceship
or a cheese plate?
Yeah, yeah,
right?
definitely.
That's yeah. Let's talk about that for a second, just before we wrap up. Like there is this sensation like you yearn for it so hard that you want to like grab it, you want to get it, right? Like that's when you have cute aggression. You're like, oh, it's so cute, I have to squish it, right? But this is very much like that, because it's like you yearn for it so hard that I don't know, you want to squeeze the thing.
Yeah, but squeezing a book doesn't really have a
or
good
a cheese
result.
plate.
Yeah,
what are you gonna
definitely.
do, right? Or like a fantasy painting, or like a master's brush stroke. Like what are you even talking about? It's just craziness.
Yeah. So, what is that? Yearning aesthetic?
Aesthetic yearning.
Aesthetic yearning. Yeah, I like that.
Because it's like a yearning for a particular aesthetic. Yeah. So if you have an aesthetic yearning, hit us up on Discord, or post a comment in the YouTube video. We're going to be trying to post our podcasts both to Anchor.fm and to YouTube. Send us a voice message on Anchor.fm, or just hit us up on Discord and tell us what you think.
Or leave a post on Twitter.
Or leave a post on Twitter, or on Instagram.
Yeah. Or if you have a better name for this phenomenon.
Yeah. Challenge us.
You've got the perfect German, conjunction word name. Let us know what that is. We'd love to know if there's, a term for it out there.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Joe.
And I'm Liz.
This is Joe's Table signing off. See you next time, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Peace. Candy. See, this is why I always like have nuts or chocolate or something while I'm GMing, because otherwise I get foamy and I get sore throat.
Gotcha.
Oh, I'm Joe. This is Joe's Table. We talk about role-playing, game design, chocolate,
More
peanuts,
chocolate.
and chocolate. This is Joe's Table. And we're going to go through the intro again.
Nope.